This conference will now be recorded.
First off, we need to do the determine the presence of quorum. Looks like we do have a quorum, and who's signing in?
There's no dial-in, just for the record, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yao was unable to be with us today.
Okay, so I know that Mr. Yao is not available. Since we do have a quorum, we'll go ahead and move to the next line of business, which is the adoption of the current agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, there's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We also have a little bit of housekeeping. We need to approve the minutes from the March 4th, 2024 meeting. Everyone a second to look at those if they haven't already.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes from March 4th.
The motion is made and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, well, we'll go ahead and get into new business. Before we get into the cases, a reminder, if you do speak out in the audience, we have microphones that we'd like to pass along for you. And then also, we have several meetings today, so as your meetings are concluded, if you're in the early lineup, please feel free to leave, or you're welcome to stay as well if you want to hear all of the comments. So totally up to you. We'll pass it to Mr. Nichols. He'll kind of review the cases, and then we'll get to either panel comments and then public comments and comments from our stakeholders.
I
James?
just want to say something quick, Zach. I might have to cut out a little bit early to get power turned back on somewhere.
Perfect.
So say, notify me.
Thanks, Mr. Wilkes. All right, so our first case number RZ-04-25-01, Madison Wood Preservers, Inc. Alan, would you like to kick this one off for us?
Sure. Carrie Gaviria, on behalf of Madison Wood Preservers, has applied to rezone property identified as 98 Oak Park Road, Madison County Tax Map 39-96, which is 0.936 acres, and 206 Oak Park Road, which is identified as Madison County Tax Map 39-98, which is 0.701 acres, from R2 Residential General to M2 Industrial General. The purpose of the rezoning application is to facilitate the expansion of Madison Wood Preservers. So for this case, we've got an illustration for you here. Of course, the primary Madison Wood Preservers property is located along Seminole Trail at roughly the corner of Oak Park Road. Madison Wood Preservers has acquired these two properties here that are outlined up on the screen, and they would like to rezone those to M2 to incorporate that property into their existing operation.
Thank you. Any questions from the panel?
I don't have questions. I just want to make a comment because I've tracked this through the last rezoning, and that includes all the planning commission workshops and the board. So at that time, they presented, what an overall plan could look like and additional buildings could look like if they were successful in obtaining property. They have done that. So it looks like this rezoning, in my opinion, solely is tracking along with that plan. So in my opinion, it would meet the rezoning criteria, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Weekly. Mrs. Kaviri, any comment from you either? We should get you a name tag for your chair. You've been here, it seems, pretty much for every meeting for the last few months, so you're due. Yeah, you will. No, I think, this one matches with the comp plan and clearly, actually, a question. How many employees does Madison Wood Preservers have?
Currently 108.
108.
I recommend we move this forward to the planning commission and board of supervisors.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. I will, point of order, stakeholders in the room, is VDOT here?
Mr. Nguyen is not here today.
Okay, VDOT, Emily from Health, anything from y'all before we?
Hang on.
Just before any buildings were constructed, just make sure any sewage disposal systems or wells are properly abandoned. That's the only comments we would have.
Any public comments and stakeholders of now? Perfect. This one's pretty straightforward. So, Mr. Weekly, procedurally, what do I need to do since I made a point of order? Motion's been made.
You just basically close it. If there's no further discussion, I think motion second's been made, so call for a vote.
Okay. The motion's been made and seconded, so we'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor for moving case number RZ-04-25-01 to the Planning Commission, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move that one forward. Thank you again for coming in. All right, we'll move on to the second case for the day. This one doesn't have a case number, so I'll go ahead and let Alan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Set this over here next to you, if that's all right.
I'll go ahead and let Mr. Nichols kick this one off.
Yep. All right, so I don't have an application for this one yet for the Planning Commission, so I don't assign case numbers until, let's say, until we have the application in hand. All right, case number to be determined, Davila Smith Family Day Home. Kelsa Smith and Ian Davila are seeking a special use permit in accordance with Madison County Zoning Ordinance Article 5-2-5 to operate a daycare center. The subject property is identified as 401 Burnt Tree Way and further identified as Madison County Tax Map 58-70F. The parcel is 3.5 acres and is zoned R1. This particular case, let's go ahead and get it pulled up so we can see where this property is. Yep, okay. Let's go here. So this property is located on Orange Road, where George James Loop, Orange Road come together. One of the first driveways off of Burnt Tree in the R1 district. So this is a special use permit use. The daycare center is also regulated by the Virginia Department of Education. And so the applicant is aware that they're going through those processes now to get correctly permitted through the other regulatory agencies. And that's where we are so far. So to the panel.
Perfect. And actually on this one, if we don't mind, if the applicants want to give overview, since this is kind of a small business and a startup for y'all, we'd love to hear kind of the vision and where you're coming from, the background.
Hi, I'm Kelsa. This is my husband, Ian. It's nice to meet you guys. So Virginia calls this a family day home. It's basically a daycare in the provider's home that has less than 12 or less, I should say, children in it. We plan on doing this on the bottom level of our home. We have a split level. On our lower level, there's a big bedroom, a rec room, a bathroom, a utility room. We also plan on putting some fencing in the backyard. So we have 3 doors in that house. The bottom back door leads to our backyard, and we're gonna fence in that area partially, so kids have room to play, have outdoor time, stuff like that. With all of that considering, I think there would be plenty of room for crafting, playing, outdoor activities, eating, anything that kids need to do at daycare, basically. We plan on having 6 children under 5, and if we decide to hire someone in the future, we could have a max of 10 or 12 children, depending on the ages we decide to cater to. I think I already mentioned it, but we're only using the lower level of our home. We plan on being open 7:30 to 5:30 on weekdays. We did look at your comprehensive plan. We think this would go great with that, especially small businesses contributing to a balanced economy, and daycares in particular contributing to a modest population growth. What questions do you have for me?
We'll kind of open it up for general questions now, then if you,
Sorry if I skipped ahead.
no, you're good, you're good.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. It's been some time. Remember being on the board prior, we've had a few daycares come through, and it's definitely a shortage in the community, like many rural communities for that, so thank you for applying. I'm sure you've probably already checked with the state. Does this meet the threshold of any licensing requirements for daycare, or?
So the requirement is we actually have to go through this zoning process before, because we have to have a paper describing the zoning submitted with our application to get licensed. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Well, I thought there used to be like a number kind of cut off. I don't know if it was beyond 5 kids, 6 kids. Is there still a number that tracks the amount of kids requires a licensure? Do you know?
I hope this answers your question. So from what I understand, Mr. Nichols, I think, will assign a number based on like our square footage of how many children we can actually have in that daycare. Is that,
That's for zoning, and I'll look it up. I'm not trying to
Okay.
grill you today. I just thought for a licensing requirement, there was a certain number of threshold of kids. You know, it's one thing if you're watching a kid, still needs to be quality care, which I'm sure you give, but it's a certain number of kids, I think, pushes it into state licensing. But we can look
I
that up.
think it's 4 or
just want
5,
to know.
Jonathan.
My understanding is that there's 4 tiers that have varying requirements with the Department of Education that we discussed previously, and they're going for the second tier. We'll try to outline that in a document for everyone to understand before we get to Planning Commission.
Okay.
so from what I understand, if you have 4 or less kids, you don't have to be licensed. If you want more than 4 kids, then you have to go through that licensing process.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just anticipate the Planning Commission asking that question. They're very big on, you know, if you have plans to grow, it might makes sense that, you know, shoot for the maximum amount. But
Okay.
thank you for entertaining my question.
I have a question for Mr. Wilks. Will there be changes to the building required for this particular use?
Yeah, I was looking at that, based off of her description, if you license in the DOE, education, and up to that 12 limit, there's no change required. You can basically do it in a house, what the building code calls R5. And we verified that there is a certificate of occupancy that was issued whenever that house was built. Some of the older houses don't have them, and that would be something potentially should be done, but you have one. If it stays under that 12 limit, then there's really nothing to do. The code allows that.
Okay.
Yeah, from my understanding, if we were to go over 12, we would actually be considered a child care center instead of a family day home.
Things would change probably drastically in the building code world.
And if I may direct a question to the applicant, so the entrance to your property is via easement through one of the neighbors. Now, I've not gone and pulled your plat yet, but do you know which of the properties your driveway exists on that goes to Burnt Tree?
I do not. I would assume it would be 415 up there.
Okay, we'll do a little looking.
Yeah, I'm not sure, sorry.
The reason I ask, and it's a shame that Mr. Nguyen from VDOT is not here today, we'll certainly reach out to him for an opinion about your entrance. So be prepared, somebody from VDOT may look at your property if we ask to see what the entrance looks like based on the number of traffic that's going to come in and out of there with you parents dropping off children and picking them up. So that's something that we'll explore through the special use permit process.
Is that I haven't been down that road several months, but I'm somewhat familiar. There was a road put in for a few homes to be built in the back. Is it like called Short Point or something like that? Is it down a private
I think
lane?
that's the south to you. I think
That's the
one to
south? Okay.
I could be wrong, though.
Okay,
I'm not familiar with that name.
okay.
Yeah, these are the new ones down here. This is our subject.
There's like a solar array
I do believe at some point in time before we bought the house, the property was bigger and it was divided. Our house was built about 20 years ago, so it'd be in that time frame.
And I'll piggyback off that question. Really, one of the ones we kind of stress here in the PRDC is neighbor communication. Are your neighbors aware of your plans and that egress, ingress could be utilized by a little bit more frequently than it is now?
No, they're not aware.
Okay. I would encourage you to have conversations sooner rather than later with neighbors, because there can be the ones that come and voice public opinion louder than other folks can, so. And especially once we have Mr. Wynn, which you may not have met yet with VDOT, he'll kind of give you kind of the legal requirements, and then, again, the neighborly requirements are a little bit different, so. Also, kind of going back to Mr. Wilkes' comments, and Emily, I'll ping you again if you still have the mic. With additional bodies in the house, anything required from the health department on septic or water usage?
Yes, so that potentially could impact the sewage system. So what we would ask, it's almost like a change of use, from getting an OSC to evaluate the system. An engineer would need to do some type of wastewater characterization, just to make sure that system could handle that extra wastewater. As far as the well, you should be getting that tested annually. Social service, your license will require that as well.
And then, Mr. Wilkes, again, does building code get into, and if I'm in the weeds here, feel free to say in the weeds, like plug outlet covers, safety gates, is that regulated by the county and building codes, or is that completely from your understanding?
From what she's proposing, that basically an R5, which is everybody's house, is permissible to do this. It'll be under the Department of Education. And the building code works with all these different agencies, including them, and up to 12. Your house is your house, you're allowed to do this, Extra safety things for little ones is kind of a personal thing.
Voluntary,
The
personal,
building
okay.
code's not gonna come out there and look at things like that. They don't regulate stuff like that.
Okay. If you
So
come-
from what I understand, the Department of Education would come out before they licensed us, and then they would have 2 visits unannounced each year.
Yeah, okay. Now, a question for Mr. Nichols or Mr. Weekly. How many daycares, or, I'm gonna say this correctly, family day homes do we have in the county now? Do we know that number? Not to put you on the spot.
Right now, I would not. Yeah, I just don't have a good number for
But
you.
underserved for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can gauge by like the Learning Center down the road. They have a waiting list, so I'm sure that carries over through the rest of the county.
And most children probably go into other counties, neighboring counties, or?
It's possible. I mean, I know when my 2 were young, we worked in Culpeper, so we utilized the daycare in Culpeper, so people make those choices. But Good Hope went away. Of course, they had an education in their early program, but those kids have to go somewhere. But certainly, I'm sure there's definitely a need for childcare in the county.
Yeah, I have a quick question following up on the driveway. Well, more of a comment, I guess. I would recommend that you do talk to VDOT before you move much further on this. With an easement like that, plus the fact that that is a small road, Burnt Tree Way is not very wide, they may have, unless you have some way of making your entrance wider or something like that, they may have some restrictions on the number of vehicle movements in and out of that driveway. So it sounds like you've got a pretty good handle on all the state requirements for the daycare, but VDOT may have some, it's too bad he's not here today, they may have some potential restrictions on the number of vehicle movements in and out of there. So I would recommend that you contact them before you move much further.
Is there a certain person you're thinking of?
I will, would say, we'll touch base either later today or tomorrow, and we'll make sure that we have a follow-up from today's meeting and an understanding of everything that we need to do before we get to planning commission. So I will help and make the introductions and all those things.
Thank you.
And Mr. Nichols, since we don't have a case number, would a motion be to move this to planning commission next, or would
You
it be to?
can motion it in any way you see fit. We'll make it work.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend, once the application has been filed appropriately through the zoning office, that this case be moved forward to the planning commission for consideration.
Second.
Perfect. All right, the motion has been made and seconded that once the application paperwork has been finalized with Mr. Nichols in the office, that the case for the Smith Family Day Home will move to the planning commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you all.
Congratulations and good luck, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next case. This will be the Full Life Journey Farm. Again, I'll let Mr. Nichols give us the overview for this one, and then we'll turn it over to the applicant for comment and then to questioning.
All right. Full Life Journey Farm. Reggie Lipscomb is seeking a special use permit in accordance with Madison County Zoning Ordinance 4-1-1 and 3-2-2 to operate a travel trailer or camper camp as provided in Madison County Zoning Ordinance Article 15. The subject property is identified as 4299 West Hoover Road and further identified as Madison County Tax Map 23-88. The parcel is 42.86 acres and is zoned A1. So Mr. Lipscomb is currently operating accommodations for RV camping on his property. The county did receive a complaint, and we investigated. Mr. Lipscomb did approach this opportunity a number of years ago with unclear results. He is required to have a special use permit for the activity. We met with Mr. Lipscomb the other day to discuss the activities in the process for getting permitted. He's been amenable to doing all of the applications and processes to operate. Similar to other campgrounds that have come through and that we've discussed at length over the last 6 months, this is regulated by Article 15 of the zoning ordinance. Critical items to discuss on this today, and maybe it's more in-depth for the Planning Commission as a whole. Article 15 requires service buildings, and I think that's a topic that we should unpack a little bit today in our discussion with the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Microphone?
I had one.
Hey, where did it go?
Did Carrie and them leave with it, or?
Borrowed it.
We've got intel inside.
Janet, would you go ahead and give up? Yeah, that way Emily still has hers. We want Emily to keep hers.
If kind of opening comments and kind of background, anything you want to
Oh,
share?
yeah, sure. First, good morning, everyone. Reggie Lipscomb. I'm kind of a segue a little bit, but I was smiling when the applicant here was looking at opening a daycare or a home care facility, because I remember when my mom was going through it after my sister had a child super, super young. My mom ended up quitting her job in order to take care of the grandbaby, and then that transitioned into, hey, you know what? We need to start a daycare because we need money. I don't have a job anymore. So hopefully everything works out well with her, because it turns out my mom ended up doing her daycare facility for 30 years. And kind of weird that I see some kids who actually went to the daycare and now they have kids, so that's pretty encouraging. But for sake of me taking the time out of what I wrote, I would like to read it so you guys can hear it, kind of give you a background, unpack what we're doing. The name of our farm is called Full Life Journey Farm. We chose that name very specifically, right? Full life encompasses a lot of stuff, right? There's death, there's life, there's memories that are created, all kinds of things. But here's what I wrote. When the land was purchased, it was based on a few factors. Primary reason was our desire to get away from the rat race, the days of unparalleled traffic on 95, to give our kids access to Mother Nature, be able to enjoy the outdoors as a family and share our space with friends. We looked at properties from Warrenton, Nokesville, down in Tappahannock, New Kent, even the well-known areas, Lake Anna and Charlottesville. To say the least, for what we were looking for, they just fell short of a few things. We had no desire to sit in traffic for hours before we could get to our away place. The things that were important to us in this area were the rolling hills, access to the different necessities, and a little side point, I remember going hiking over at Old Rag when I was in Boy Scouts, right? So just being close to that brought back some memories. The other thing that was super important, what I wrote here, was literally we're about 15 to 30 minutes from anything we need, right? There's the hospital in Culpeper, there's stores, there's different businesses, you know, there's a Lowe's if you want to do the local thing, right? You have Cardinal Home Center. So our focus is to try to do things with, you know, local companies, local businesses. To be close where I was, you know, as a child, I grew up over in Gordonsville, right off of 33. And so to be close to there, still very important to us. My mom still lives over there. I remember playing baseball at the field right behind the library. So a lot of memories there. Not to mention there was a need, no need to get on Interstate 95. We literally can get to our place from Route 3, from Route 15, from 29. So you guys look like you're all shaking your heads, so you understand what I'm talking about when I say the traffic is not something we enjoy. The farm campground idea was birthed from our daughter's desire to become a veterinarian. At the time, she was only 9 when she expressed that she wants to be a vet. Whether or not that'll end up happening, I have no idea, because every farmer I've talked to, they say, yeah, my daughter wanted to be a vet too, and most of them say she's probably gonna change her mind. But that being the case, that's really where this whole farm campground idea came from. It's because she wants to be a vet. The goal of the farm campground is very simple: to allow for the agritourism fundamentals that are placed in the Madison, you know, I think you guys call it your strategic outlook, or I forget exactly the term you have, but the fundamentals are the same: to be available to Virginia residents and those who appreciate the outdoors in passing through. Agritourism is pretty, you know, straightforward. It involves any agriculturally based operation or activity that brings visitors to a farm or ranch, and in our case, have it based around have the campground based around the following: pasture-born, pasture-raised, pasture-grazed, and finished beef, goat, and chicken. As part of establishing a relationship with the community, all of the above livestock that we currently have were purchased from local farms who believe, as we do, and appreciate the value in knowing where your food comes from, how it's raised, and allowing for a cleaner, healthier environment by providing all natural products to our family and community consumers. The farm campground came from our love of the outdoors, taking many camping trips to different farms and short day trips to stay on the farms and enjoy what they had to offer. Several trips included hands-on bottle feeding new calves, doing chores for the day, bedding the animals, etc., clean up around the farm. After a few trips, we realized that we often had to stay in a hotel because the farm didn't have any kind of facility to stay on. So outside of doing the normal, you know, tent camping and things of that nature, because we like camping, we would take our RV out and we were like, it clicked. We now have a space where we can have these types of things. And that, again, birthed itself into this idea that we have called the Full Life Journey Farm Campground. We have visited dozens of campgrounds and realized that we do not, and I literally have this bolded, we do not want to become a huge RV resort, nor have hundreds of sites. Our goal is to have a space where visitors can come and be able to have access to what is called full hookups, or a simple space to pop a tent if they want to do any of the following: tent camp, RV stay, owner-hosted experience, a day trip, literally all wrapped around agriculture. The above is not an exhaustive list, but rather to give an idea of our vision. We have successfully visited farm tours, hosted farm tours at our farm through our partnership with Virginia State University Agriculture Department, Virginia Tech University Agriculture Departments, more specifically with the Small Farm Outreach Program. Several classes have been attended at the Carver Center via the VEC, VCE, Virginia Cooperative Extension, USDA, and the Virginia Association for Biological Farming, which is VABF, which is a huge conference that happens every year down in, not always in Roanoke, but the past couple of years has been in Roanoke. The farm campground is a piece of a larger picture and is vital to give guests and visitors a full experience on our farm with environmentally friendly camping sites, clean and neat restrooms, along with access to hands-on learning and structured classes designed specifically to include local farmers and other supporting entities, such as farms that do what we don't, right? We don't raise or grow vegetables and all that types of thing, but other farmers do. So we want to be able to support those other farmers, people that are, making honey or cider or wood centers, hay producers, all those types of things that we're going to use at the farm. We want to be able to support local businesses that way. The Full Life Journey Farm Campground is not just a farm where people can come and get away to camp. It's a place to learn about agriculture, the importance of the farm and the farmer, create a space to allow for the farm and land to stay in farm use while opening up an opportunity for revenue generation by supporting local businesses in Madison and surrounding counties. That's what I wrote. I'm happy to answer any questions or anything.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you definitely picked a good spot of the world to kind of fulfill your vision and dream. Yeah,
Thank you.
You did. Now, I guess my first question is, and sorry guys, I'm still fighting allergies, so how long have y'all been doing, since we're talking today really purely about the rentals, how long have y'all been renting the RVs and the campsites?
So I don't have a definite date, but I would say probably about 2 years.
And that is always, is it, I've been looking at your Airbnb and your website as you're chatting as well. It's the one RV in place and then 2 campsites, are those the actual?
Well, so in essence, yes, yeah. And the RV that's in place, that's our personal RV, so when you say in place, it's there on the property, sure. Has it been rented out? It has not.
Well, so the RV is just new on the Airbnb here for rentals?
Right, it hasn't been rented out, correct.
Okay. And then when we talk about the campsites, primitive camping, people come in and pitch their own tents, or tents are provided?
They could pitch their own tent, but as I mentioned, some of the, one of the things that we talked, one of the things that we talked about is having might be because I'm covering up the antenna, is having like an owner experience. So if someone wanted to come and stay on the property, we'd be more than willing to pitch a tent for them and, pitch a tent for them and do camping. Because some people, they want to experience the outdoors, they just don't want to do the work. So if we can give them that experience, we'd be happy to.
And my understanding, the parcel is 42 acres?
It is.
That right? And then your long game vision, how many sites would you have as individual units or sites for rental?
A maximum of 10. Yeah, we don't anticipate doing anything larger than that because, again, as I mentioned, we want to be environmentally friendly, so we're not trying to make a huge impact on the land.
Mr. Whitman, if I may interrupt for clarification. Mr. Lipscomb, you said maximum 10 sites. Is that maximum 10 RV sites, or is that a total number of sites combined RV tent? What are you thinking?
So when the 10 number is wrapped around an RV site, because
Okay.
again, we don't want to make a big impact on the land. Tent sites, our goal, if people just want to come, like, we don't really want to have a designated spot for someone to say, hey, you have to put your tent here. Our land is open. If you want to go put your tent up in the woods, go put your tent up in the woods. If you want to put it in the open pasture, go put it open. We're okay with that. We want people to not be relegated to, a particular spot.
So
let
what
them
kind
kind of
of-
be free on the land.
What is your anticipated maximum occupancy for tent campers? How many people would you want to entertain at a time? You don't have to tell me now, but just give me a
No,
round
I'll give
number
you,
and we'll-
be quite honest with you, tent campers, probably no more than about 4 or 5 at a time. And be quite honest, we've had, we, we had a guy drive up from Georgia who I thought was tent camping, but it turns out he was hammock camping. He came up because he wanted to hike Shenandoah and go do some other hikes, different places. And, I mean, his literal footprint was about as far as from here to the end of the chair.
It's how our Boy Scouts do it these days.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
And actually, Mr. Nichols, if I may to you, working backwards, with our current ordinance of, in 42 acres, what would be the maximum legally allowed per ordinance sites that we could host on the site?
Way more than he's proposing. He is permitted to have, as long as he's got a minimum of 5 acres, he can have up to 20 sites per acre. So I don't think we're looking at anywhere near the capacity of the ordinance.
And that would be tents, that number you gave, not necessarily RV sites.
This is number of campsites, so whether you designate that, camps are permitted.
The reason why I ask, because a campsite, I think it's, there's dimensions listed for that.
There are.
Yeah.
So, and Mr. Lipscomb has a copy of this.
Okay.
So travel trailer and camper spaces, minimum of 1,000 square feet in area, pardon me. Minimum of 25 feet in width, no closer than 12 feet to one another. I think these were established with emergency services in mind. And I believe the primitive campsites are similar. With a setback imposed of 50 feet from adjacent properties. That might be the same up here. That's not for the RVs, but it is for the primitive ones. You need a 50-foot setback.
Well, mainly to your point, he definitely has the acreage for the amount stated here today.
Definitely has the acreage, so we're not there.
And I guess, Mr. Lipkin, kind of on the process going through, the planning commission and probably the board likes to work in definitives and kind of exact. So when we're talking about hypotheticals, sometimes it's easier to frame it in what's possible and kind
Sure,
of what you
sure.
know you want to work with, based within the reins of the ordinance.
I'd be happy, once I can get some more details down, I'd be happy to give a firm number that would allow for expansion if needed, but I can guarantee you it's not gonna be in the hundreds, I can tell you that for sure. If you guys have ever been to a campground, you know what you experience, and you can reach out and touch somebody, and that's not what we want.
And probably the bigger questions that will come up are the RV sites, and Jamie will probably have, you know, quite a bit to say as well as Emily, because that requires, you know, construction and then septic clearly and electric and all that. So defining those and probably placement on those will be key.
So that said, and you guys keep saying Emily, I don't know if that's the Emily.
The Health Department, Emily?
Oh, okay, Borden? Is that
Borden.
correct? Oh, okay, so, well, now we finally meet. Because I wanted to express to her, and then again, this is no fault of Ms. Borden, but I have documentation from the OSC that you guys had referenced, the on-site, soil, what is it called?
Evaluator.
Soil evaluator. So I have documentation from the soil evaluator from literally 2 years ago when this idea was first broached, that it was my understanding that the documentation that person provided was provided to the health department, which is why we started doing the things that we were doing, thinking that we were in adherence to the guidelines, only to find out after more detailed conversation, after having the conversation with Mr. Nichols and Mr. Wilkes the other day, that we were not in accordance with it. And I literally have the application, the entire project and all that stuff in, like, documented. This, you know, they just emailed me again. So I misunderstood what I was supposed to be doing prior to, but I have literally all that documentation from 2 years ago here on file. So I say that to say thank you, because she told me, she was very helpful, her and her staff. I just didn't understand it the way I thought I needed to.
And that's a prime example of how this committee came about, because you're not the only one.
Oh, got it, okay.
Yeah, many have come before you, it's the exact same way.
Yeah, following up on a couple of things that the planning commission, I think, will be interested in. Actually, you're looking at two specific separate uses here, the primitive campground, and the RV sites. When you, if I assume you will be coming before the planning commission, I suspect that they're going to want some very specific information about the, what kind of hookups you have at the RV sites, maybe a layout so that we can see what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
You
Yep.
you said maybe a maximum of 10 of those, I think you said, so. When you come before the planning commission, the more specific details that you have available to show us, the better.
I'd be happy to give you guys this is definitely not a firm layout, but if you guys want to look at this while we're dialoguing, I'd be happy to give you what I have.
Mine was also on PowerPoint, so don't feel bad. Trust me.
And the other comment related to the, I assume, primitive campground situation. We've just been working through some of this, and if I remember correctly, there are health department requirements once you go over 3 sites for the primitive campground too. They require some kind of waste disposal and things like that, if I remember.
Yes, sir.
So,
And so that, in the vein of what you just said, was where my misunderstanding came in. Yep.
okay, thank you.
And this is, it's a little garbled, but I can, whoever has a question about it, I can explain
Bless you.
what the drawing means.
Yeah, Mr. Lipscomb, if you don't mind, because I was looking for a legend, there's asterisks or stars, and then there's like octagons.
Octagons,
there.
yeah.
So what do each of those mean?
So all of the green things that you see are either trees or open pasture or fruit trees or stuff that have been either there or stuff that we planted.
Okay, is there anything on here denoting the potential campsites or?
Only the 3 that we currently have. So if you look at the little hashes that are pink, so one of which, if you look at the big blue circle up in the back, there's a little pink line there, right by the pond.
Okay.
There's one there. If you look at the barn, at the rear of the barn, there's one there. And then if you come forward of the barn to the right corner, there's one there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
From an emergency response standpoint, are you gonna have access roads? Yeah, you said open camping, it could be up in the tree line. I'm thinking fire, or an EMS incident. Will there be access to those type of things?
So, yes, sir, there is a hardened path for access.
Okay.
But for an example, from a fire perspective, at any campsite, let's say if I just let them go out on pasture or up in the woods, there's no open fire that's gonna be allowed.
Okay.
The only fires that would be allowed are gonna be in ring spaces that would be identified on paperwork.
Okay.
From another road access, if you look down at the bottom where it says, right where it says driveway, literally that going straight up the driveway and then to circle around the barn, that's the only driving space outside of the normal farm driving space on the property.
Okay.
Mr. Lipscomb? There we go. Thank you, sir. I was just looking at and we can unpack this before going to the planning commission if you like. But I believe I've heard you say a couple of times now that you had 3 RV sites, and I'm looking at the website. We've got Merlot, Pinot, Cabernet, and Malbec sites on here.
My wife likes wine. That's why we came up with this name.
No judgment. It was the number of sites, and I'm hoping that in a future iteration of your site plan, if we can label which sites are what, so that way we can reconcile the services that you're advertising with your plan.
Okay.
Because we'd like to be able to tailor your permit to what you're doing and having an understanding of it. in complete fashion. So-
Understand, okay, no, not a problem.
And I was actually going to bring up the exact same thing. Again, coming from putting the planning commission hat on, and Mr. Carpenter references too, I'm hearing two different potentially permits or ordinance, RVs and then the campsites. And, yeah, I think defining both of those will help us determine what exactly you're kind of applying for.
Well-
Because, yeah, right now I'm seeing, is it going to be two permits potentially at this point, or two different?
We can write one special use permit that applies to multiple ordinances. That's okay.
It's two uses. though.
I do want to
Yeah,
ask,
multi-use.
Two uses.
Mr. Week brought up a good point. Are you renting out the farmhouse as well?
The farmhouse has not been rented out. We posted it to be rented out, but it has not been rented out, yes.
Would you like to have that ability?
Well, I can probably say, at this point, we would probably say no. If you don't know, well, unless you've been there, that house it was an 1860s log cabin that was built. When we bought it, it was pretty much like just not anything. It was just bad condition. However, because of that, we said, we might be able to bring this back. So we were able to actually preserve two of the rooms that has all the original hand-hewn logs from the property on there, right? So that was a huge deal for us. And then as we started taking it apart and learning about it, we saw stamps in concrete. Oh, this was done in this year, and this was done in this year, right? So we have, in essence, put a lot of love and attention on this property that now we actually don't want to rent the house out. So I'm pretty sure unless my wife changes her mind, we're probably not going to do that.
And I'd say two things. On the house itself, I mean, our current ordinance is a by right. You could put, correct me if I'm wrong, but the one structure on there, you're allowed one structure by right to rent
Correct.
as a short-term rental. So I think would that fall into
Well,
that?
well, that is a true statement. Let's unpack the totality of the site. Let me do a little reading homework on that one to see how that might line up.
Colin?
Yeah.
And it would need to be defined, not only for the planning commission, but for our commissioner of revenue, because having a house you're living in versus what you rental, tangible personal property, all that
Yeah.
stuff comes into play, so. That's why it's just important to define. that.
Understood.
And I'm going to even unpack some more, and this is why we have these kind of, I mean, it's very informal. On your site, you have events as well. Are you like weddings? I see maybe some church events and some other community events. What does your event vision look like? And maybe not this year, but think 5 years down the road.
Literally any of the above. For an example, we've had the Girl Scouts come down, we've had sports teams come down. Our kids are very active in sports. So we do like an end of the year celebration for them or mid-year type of thing. And they just come down, hang out, they play, they go fishing, do those types of things. Those things that we've done, none of that stuff has generated any kind of revenue whatsoever. That's literally just, hey, we have family, we have friends, we have space, let's come and enjoy it. However, we have had requests to come down and host different things. Someone called us about doing a wedding, but we haven't gone through the details to figure out what all that stuff looks like just yet. But ideally, sure, we would love to be able to host events.
Okay. And the reason I bring that up, there's actually another ordinance for that, an event. And, I mean, from conversation, it sounds like it's going to be, even if you're doing yoga classes and for pay down the road or revival retreats, things like that, in my opinion, is
Are
a
you
fall.
thinking
Event
event
venue,
versus
yeah.
campground? Is
Yeah,
that where you guys are?
that's right. Well, I'm
I think
kind of
that's
thinking that.
for
An event venue
larger
would
things,
include
but-
the
RV.
RV sites, it would include their various kinds of camping sites, plus the ability to do events within, certain limitations, but.
So I guess for clarity for me and maybe for you guys to hear it, to say, maybe don't think about it that way, think about it differently. So in our mind, because we've gone to campsites and different things, there's more often than not, there's what do they call it, like a club room or something, where you can go in instead of having, your people outside under a pavilion, you can come inside into like maybe another pavilion or a barn or a room or whatever, and host your birthday party inside because you don't have space in your RV.
Yeah.
So
And I
that's where
think-
the event thing
Yeah,
comes
it's
into play.
I would suggest that you sit down with Mr. Nichols and take a look at the event venue. the one that Madison has is pretty open-ended. I mean, it gives you a lot of options. I mean, it doesn't require you to have a pavilion or something like that, for example, but
Okay,
it does
perfect.
give you that option.
And
It may be a
secondly,
simpler approach, yeah.
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Scott. I mean, again, you're thinking kind of the here and the now, but to save you a trip, let's just say 2 years you have a wedding, or a year you have a wedding, you may get a neighbor complain again, they're doing events, you may have to come back in front of the board. I think it'd be important to work with Mr. Nichols on what you're trying to capture
Correct.
earlier to do the one permit. And then I will second, I'll pass it to Mr. Wilks. When you talk about going inside for events, and you're probably getting into Jamie's territory again of, different permits required for building and zoning there. So again, every time we kind of unwrap a layer, you've got someone else probably
Sure,
to
yeah.
work with, so.
You know, I'm reading over the event venue ordinance as we're talking, and this may be an appropriate option for us to go, so I'm happy to review it with Mr. Lipscomb. We can look at that.
This is exactly the kind of situation that it was designed for, I think, yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
And secondly, from, I guess, a personal or political standpoint, we want to see this thrive and survive in the
Oh, yeah.
county. We want these to work, so it may seem like a little bit of work, but we're trying to make it best for you for, again, your first time through, to make sure that you're successful, teed up for
Fair
business.
enough,
So
thank you.
that's why we kind of nitpick at some things early on, so.
Understood.
Yeah, and you referred to the comprehensive plan and the new the revised comprehensive plan that we're almost finished with right now places even more emphasis on the agritourism aspects. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, you're very much in line with what we're looking for.
Okay.
And Tracy's getting next, Tracy is in charge of economic development and Chamber of Commerce,
Well-
we haven't met yet, so.
We have met.
Oh, yeah, but-
He's
yeah.
already on our website.
Yes.
We met when, I was trying to think what year it was, when the courthouse, or when this building was being renovated.
That's right.
Okay.
We met in the
Yeah.
courthouse.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been a few years. So, yeah, he's on. And that's the other thing, once you decide what we're gonna do, we'll wanna revamp that too.
Yep,
And
yes,
board
ma'am.
restrictions.
Yep.
Side note, oh, and neighbors, make sure all the neighbors are on board. Same.
Well, I can make sure they're
Same.
informed, but clearly somebody's not on board, whoever made the complaint, but.
Yeah. We've heard from Emily already. I'm trying to think. Dawson, you lean into any questions?
Did we hear from Emily?
We have
About
not heard from
this?
Emily yet.
Do we-
From Jamie, though, how are you on the building side?
Well, I'm gonna choose my words carefully, because we've been here before with Reggie, a couple years ago, right? We met, not this exact group, but a similar group. We talked about this.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and we went through some of the steps, but you've done some work out there that, you've done some septic work, you installed some electric, and
Correct.
none of it was actually permitted or inspected. Now, the county wants you to succeed, but it just, anytime I run across this, I always proceed with caution, because there's potential issues already, But getting it all permitted and zoning-wise, health department-wise, building code-wise, they talked about in the zoning ordinance, some type of service building. That's something you'll have to deal with too, and that's, these won't be farm structures. This is not gonna be classified as farming operations when you run a campground. It just not. And there's a lot of ways to do it, but just things you gotta be aware of.
So I guess to that end, and that's when, and I'm sorry, sir, I don't know your name? Mr. Carpenter? So that was one of the things when he said the 3-site rule about zoning and all those types of things. When I said that's where my misunderstanding came in, the things that you're talking about that have been done was based on my understanding. It's like, okay, I'm not doing anything over 3, I can go ahead and do this. And if you look at, well, when I looked at the special use application, it has 2 boxes on there. It says, check here, contractor, and put your name, or check here as homeowner, put your name. Well, clearly I did homeowner, right? And that implies that, at least the way I understood it, I would say, that the work that was being done as the homeowner, you can do it. It just has to be done this way. You have to apply for, the permit, et cetera. But again, I'm thinking, if you do more than 3, which is why I didn't apply, because I literally, like I said, I have the documentation here. But that being said, the things that I did put in, I put in the electric, like you said, I put in the access to the septic, like you said. According to let's say the code and the ordinances that I saw documented, I did everything according to the code, even though it wasn't permitted. Even as, like we talked, coming and applying for the new electrical permit, I didn't realize I had to because I had just applied for the farm use permit that, to my understanding, because we're looking at a farm campground, fell under that. But you said, no, you have to do a separate one, so I went the same day, applied for that one, and so here we are.
Yeah.
Now pending
I think
inspection, but.
a big concern too is gonna be with Emily in the health department on septic fields. And
Correct.
yeah,
Yep.
that's
And
gonna
I-
be a big
Yeah.
discussion with her.
And I guess I forgot, y'all had referenced that y'all emailed each other but just met, so you didn't give comment, Emily. So since you've been mentioned, we'll let Emily have the floor here.
Yeah, oh boy. Okay, so, yeah, we did go out there on a complaint visit, and we did see, you know, it looked like some work had been done, saw some clean outs, that sort of thing. So you do, in the state of Virginia, sewage is pretty highly regulated. So no matter if there are any ag exemptions, that doesn't exempt sewage disposal. So you are required to get a permit for that, for any connection. And, you know, did you do the work or did you hire someone?
I did the work, well, me and, sorry. Hello. So myself and some friends, we did the work.
Okay,
And the friends are contractors, or, you know, like they've been doing this stuff for years, and they guided me along, but yes.
okay. Yeah, you do have to also be DPOR licensed to be a septic installer,
Oh, well, so,
even
And I don't-
with connections.
sure, right, yes, ma'am.
All right. So as far as the VDH campground, you are looking at two different things. You have to get the special use permit through the county. That's one part of it. But the other part of it, if you do have 3 sites or more, you have to get a VDH campground permit. And that, you know, that is quite a process too, where you're gonna, you know, if you had an OSE out there, we would want to see an evaluation because again, it's going to be somewhat a change of use for that sewage disposal system because now it's going from residential to some type of commercial type system. You're going to have to get an engineer to do a wastewater characterization. So that's what we would require. And then the VDH campground permit. If it's just going to be RVs, you probably don't need a dump station. But if you're going to have tents, the dump stations for the connections, there have to be dump stations. But as far as, you know, if they're going to be tent campers, you're probably also going to have bathroom facilities under that campground permit. But be more than happy to talk about it as you go along.
Yes, ma'am. And I guess I can email the paperwork that I have from the OSE because they laid out the bathroom use. They laid out, I think the way they called it was a facilities use. So because in the I think it's Article 15, it says you have to have a slop sink. So to me, I guess it's like a kitchen sink is the way I understood it, because you have to have somewhere for people to come and wash dishes for perimeter campers. I guess that's what that is. So anyway, that's laid out on the package that they provided. But I guess that being said, again, remember my understanding was the 3-site, kind of threshold. So the stuff that I've done has been based on that. The other things that we're now talking about was literally like our phase 2 down the road, start the permitting process. But I guess I jumped ahead based on the way I understood. So this is where we are now. And even the things that we want to do, we have to start the process now, but that's something that's like down the road. From my understanding, it's pretty pricey. And last time I checked, money doesn't grow on trees for us.
We can talk about phased development.
Oh,
That's certainly
okay.
an option. We can get you permitted, and then we'll talk about, between all of us having a conversation, we can structure timing of your activities, so that way you can proceed in the future with pre-approved activities without having to come back in every time you want to change something.
Oh, okay.
But we'll talk about making a plan, and we'll explore an alternative for event venue, as Mr. Carpenter suggested.
Okay.
But say which may suit your needs a little bit better and be a little bit more easy to navigate.
Okay,
And so we'll have a follow-up.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, and maybe just a quick addition to that. We're talking about two different things here. Your special use application, assuming you go with the event venue, that covers the use. But there's all the permits and health department requirements, all of those are still in place. That's a separate issue.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I understand that now. Thank you.
And I mean, I'll kind of piggyback on that too. Getting current with Mr. Wilkes and then, of course, VDH, would probably be a number one priority. Again, shutdowns can happen, complaints can continue, and that would probably just impede the process for everyone. So I would get square and whole with both of those organizations probably first. And then, as Mr. Carpenter mentions, we're talking ordinances, Alan's lap, housing, building, Jamie's lap, and then health department. And the only other thing I'd say is, again, this is kind of the informal group, and I haven't mentioned it, I'm doing something very similar on my farm, and I've been at that for about 5 years.
Nice.
There are some of us in the county that are happy to share. I don't know what I'm permitted to after this meeting, since it may become a formal session between us, but there are other folks that have gone through what you're going through right now and
Okay.
learning it. That are happy to share. She's an amazing wealth of knowledge, and she helped me extensively, as did Jamie and his team. So if you have questions before you do something, you've got plenty of support in the county, so don't feel afraid to ask. I asked questions of Jamie. We put a sign up that said, "Don't come in my office anymore." You know, it's a good county, lots of support, so. Emily, yeah, same thing, she could have, but.
To spin off of that, that's where I wanted to follow up. Mr. Whitman hit the nail on the head. Seems like a lot, and it seems like, oh, I'm gonna have to dig up stuff and show stuff. But I assure you, if you're willing to work with the county, that the goal is to get you operating. It's gonna feel like a long process, but the ultimate goal is to get you up and going, because this is the type of things that we believe should be here in the county.
Got it, thank you.
So-
And I'm sorry, your name?
Dustin Dawson.
Dustin. Nice to
Yeah.
meet you. Thank you.
Again, on this one, conversation probably would be any type of recommendation, or do you want to table this one for another time?
Well, it depends on what you want to do. If you would like me to go through with Mr. Lipscomb and maybe tailor a draft permit under event venue or under campground, whatever the body sees fit, I'm more than happy to do that, and we can come back here for another informal if you'd like to, or if you have strong opinions and you think we ought to go to the planning commission with either campground or event venue, happy to do that as well. So it's the pleasure of this body, what you want to do.
I don't know if we can regulate this, and I don't, what I would like to see is him spend some time with you and really define what he wants to do. But I'd also see if this is wanting to move forward, we go ahead and open up some permits to get the things that were done, and just the fact, I mean, we've all done it. We've all done something and thought, oh, I didn't need something, now I do. Let's get some permits open. I don't know if we can even regulate that. Just so that the ball's moving in the right direction. There's no hiccups. We're studying, even with the health department as well. If Mr. Lord, your name escapes me, that's terrible.
Mr. Nichols, Alan?
Mr. Nichols would work with you on getting those applications filled out and getting the process started. So I don't know if that even makes sense to be a motion.
Well, it does, but certainly a motion can be made to, but once outstanding issues are resolved, permit or application to go to the planning commission.
So moved.
All right.
I'm going to second it, Mr. Chairman, because I'd like to get it to discussion, if I may. So, and I appreciate where Supervisor Dawson's coming from. So if I understand the motion, I'm not creating this in my head, so that's why I wanted to clarify and discuss it. We would be recommending moving this along to the planning commission once defined, but it would be either as a primitive campground or some sort of campground or event venue. Is that what my understanding correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I fully support that. Thank you, sir.
And then, another point of order, is that with permits or any violations paid and resolved
It would
as
be-
well, or would that be a separate?
You're planning, sorry.
I think that's separate, but I highly
Yeah.
recommend any open matters to be resolved, because the planning commission is gonna ask it, the board of supervisors is gonna ask it, and that's
Yeah.
just kind of standard
It's
procedure.
gonna make the long part of the process smoother in the long run.
I think maybe Emily ought to enlighten us. To get right with the health department, that's not gonna happen overnight, is it? That's some work involved, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if he had an OSC out there, I don't know what they did, and I don't know what that permit package consists of. I guess we could look at that and see what's in there. But again, the OSC or you will have to get that wastewater characterization from a engineer. And that sounds scarier than it is. It's pretty painless. And then we can look at the VDH campground permit and what you need to do.
Is that something is that something that you guys would want to look at now? I can email it and you can show it on the screen if you want to.
I think it'd be best with Emily.
Yeah, we don't have to do that by
That's
committee.
nothing we
We'll
would
follow
look
up
at.
Above my
afterwards.
pay scale.
Yeah, that's subject matter expertise there, yeah.
But it should be encouraging that if you have OSE, you know, you're already a step ahead than someone starting from scratch. So, again, to Mr. Dawson's point, it could seem, the point of this committee is not intimidation. It's information and really get it on the right track so we have a nice clean application for the next body to consider. So I think some offline conversations between the health department and/or Mr. Nichols could really fine tune, to the supervisor's point of the motion, figure out which way you want to go. If it's event venue or campground, you're still going to need OSE, you know, kind of tell how much flow per day and all that, so.
And then additionally, from a timing standpoint, let's just say you and Emily may need 4 weeks to 6 weeks, and the conversations are still gonna be going with Alan. If you don't make it, if we make the motion and it passes here to the planning commission, if you're not in the next planning commission session, you could be in the following one. So we're not blocking you here. We just wanna make sure you don't know that the work will be ongoing the whole time, and then once it's ready, Mr. Nichols will inform us as to when it can be.
Yeah, also, I'd kind of like to express that if you choose to move forward, you have the right to apply. And if you apply, I will schedule you to be heard by the planning commission. By us recommending you take certain steps, it will definitely increase your likelihood of success going through. So we're not trying to hold you up or anything, but we just want it to go as smooth as possible when we get in a more public setting, when we have members of the public, neighbors that come in and express concerns. It's a lot easier when those concerns are already addressed and resolved before we get to a public hearing, you know, with the decision you made, and there's a lot less pressure off of you and a lot less pressure off of the planning commission and the board as well from the public. So it's simply in the interest of your success, but you may choose.
All right, so thank you for that. Let me get some clarity. When you say I have a right to apply, I thought I already applied by the application. Or are you saying to apply for the new with the health department, or is it? I want to make sure I'm not
We
missing
had you
something.
fill out an application to be heard by this body to express your plans, which is just a little one-pager that we filled out. There's a copy of it in here. For you to apply for a special use permit, I sent you with a copy of that, and then we will tailor that to your needs based on today's discussion as well as a follow-up or two that we'll have
Got it,
to
okay.
get you what you need.
Got
Yep.
it.
And additionally, there is a fee at that point. You're kind of getting an exercise here without having to commit financially to the permit, but you will, when you submit the special use permit form, there'll be a fee as well with that.
Well, okay, so that was my understanding, because I came today ready to pay that fee to make sure I'm applying.
Yeah.
Okay,
So let you and I follow
Yeah,
up.
that'll be.
okay, got it.
Yeah, this is an exploratory type of committee to make sure, so we review special use permit pre-applications or rezoning pre-applications. the idea is, so before people start spending a lot of money, let's talk about the ordinance, what you would like to do, so the whole guidance is there. Then, if you decide to move forward, then you pay your fee and your PER.
Got it.
The quick hypothetical would be if I took your application fee and we applied for a primitive campground and it came in here and the motion failed because they didn't want that and they said, go back and apply for an event venue. Well, we could have just done that from the beginning, from our discussion, rather than have you pay more money, reapply, and take the time. So one extra meeting here might save you months later.
Okay.
So that's the purpose.
Got it, thank you.
And going forward, Mr. Nichols is the shepherd for the process now with the county. So he'll be your main point of contact for the
Okay.
permit. And then you and Emily will have the VDH conversations. And then, again, if any building permits come up, Alan will be able to steer you to Mr. Wilkes. So,
All right.
okay, so then the motion on the floor, which has been seconded, is we recommend moving the Full Life Journey Farm to the Planning Commission once it is defined as an event venue or campground per Mr. Nichols' recommendation. Did I read that correctly?
Let's say once notices of violations are resolved.
And additionally with notices and violations being resolved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations.
Thank
Again, Mr. Nichols will have you from this point forward. It was a pleasure learning more about the farm as well. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
yeah, it's been a pleasure. All right, Mr. Sidley, you've been patiently waiting. Our last case of the day is the River House at the Swinging Bridge. Mr. Nichols, I'll give you a second to catch your breath too on this one. Give us a briefing.
Huh. My agenda packet cut off on this one, but that's all right. We'll talk anyway. Give me just a moment.
Hello?
Good.
All right, so, no, I've got this. I just didn't have all my graphics. All right. River House at Swinging Bridge. Scott Taki Sidley is seeking a special use permit in accordance with Madison County zoning ordinance 4-1-1/3-1-22, reference Article 20-160A, to operate more than one short-term lodging unit. The subject property is identified as 36 Meadows Lane and is further identified as Madison County Tax Map 21-40. The parcel is 13.24 acres and is zoned A1. This is a property that sits on the river in Kriglersville. It's just up the street from the Kriglersville School, which I'm sure we're all very familiar with. Let me see here. Just a second here. My apologies that the graphics got cut off of your information packet, but we can very quickly illustrate this property here. All right. So this is Mr. Sidley's property up on the screen. It has significant river frontage that goes along. It is improved with a dwelling, several outbuildings. In December, we became aware that the outbuildings had been converted to dwelling units for the purposes of short-term rental. There were no permits that I'm aware of in place for this one. And also, there is a deck that was permitted along the river that was later converted to a dwelling unit as well. It's like a large screened-in porch with the back section that's been converted with a bedroom and a kitchen and a bathroom and what have you. We had, in an attempt to get Mr. Sidley permitted for the building issues, we did discover that there was some gray water issues with the structure that sits on the river there. Mr. Sidley has been responsive. He's been very pleasant to work with, and in getting him permitted and correct. He's certainly working with the health department in a similar manner to Mr. Lipscomb and getting corrected on things. Beyond that, we'll go to the panel and the applicant and let him explain his project.
Mr. Sidley, we'll kick it off with you if you want to give a little bit of background and
All right.
open to questions.
So we bought the property in 2017. It was a, I don't know if you know the history a little bit, but there was a pottery business there. And there were several outbuildings that were kind of, I guess, used to have workshops in. They had some kind of rudimentary plumbing in them, but they were basically abandoned. So we didn't know what I came down here. I used to camp down here when I was a kid. I came down here basically I thought I was going to find half an acre next to the park that I could set up a tent, so I didn't have to, we used to go to the Appalachian Trail Club cabins, and half the time they were full, and so I just wanted a place I could go last minute. Anyway, my daughter saw this place on Zillow and convinced us to buy it, and so we didn't know what we were doing initially. We, like Mr. Lipscomb, I have a good friend who is in the building trades, and he came and helped us just kind of convert those outbuildings. We weren't planning on Airbnb it at the time, but at some point we decided we started renting it out. It's a really good property for, even though, so under the ordinance here, it looks like we're allowed to have one rental. So we thought, well, we only rent it to one. We don't rent it to multiple groups. We rent it to one group, but it is more than one structure. And it's a really great property for like extended families and like groups, like we have a lot of like 3 or 4 couples that are friends who come, and they have their kind of own independent spaces, but they can also, be together. Anyway, we are this month putting in a new septic system. We've been working with Emily, we've got an application in that I think it's going to move forward. We've got a contractor who's putting in a new septic system for us. We've disconnected we worked with an architect in Charlottesville who told us that we should we could do a gray water system and filter the water in the river building, the river deck that's near the river. But then I guess we're not allowed to use gray water systems, so we've disconnected that. So anyway, I'm asking for a special use permit so that we're R2, so that we can, just rent the entire property to groups. A lot of what we get is extended families. We get people who are having a wedding at Rhinebeck Farms or somewhere else, and they have extra people, and they need some place to put them. It's been pretty successful. We have like a 5-star rating on Airbnb. We've had no complaints from neighbors. We've got a lot of parking. So, anything else? Any other questions for me right off the bat?
I was just thinking of more location. I was having a sidebar here with our deputy county administrator, and I thought your name, or you look familiar. You have the cool property that has the other swinging bridge. Is that correct?
Yes, would be
Okay,
that one.
that's where I remember you.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful property.
It is a beautiful property.
Is the swing bridge still in use there?
That swing bridge is still in use. VDOT keeps inspecting it. I go out there and replace boards when they get rotten, and hopefully, hopefully we'll be able to keep that bridge in place. It's really a nice amenity for the county. I mean, we have so many people stop and take their kids out on it, and especially during festivals, and it's great for our business too. So it's
Good question. Is there a swimming pool on the property?
There is a swimming pool. It was there when we bought it. We've converted it. It was abandoned, had been abandoned for about 20 years, but we've converted it into what's called a natural pool, so it doesn't use chemicals. There's a little pond that the water filters through. It works great. It's really nice to have. Also attracts Airbnb people, to have a pool there for the kids.
I mean, in terms of, on the face value of this, it's a pretty standard
On face
SUP,
value, this
yeah.
is in line with what we want for our comprehensive plan. The language of the ordinance says that for multiple units, you require a special use permit, so we're here. I don't, from planning or zoning perspectives, I don't have any qualms with what Mr. Sidley's doing. We're simply going through the administrative process. The only thing that we asked him to do was to make the changes to get right with the building code with Jamie for the outbuildings and to get right with the health department. But, provided that those things are accomplished and he's making steps to make sure that he does all those things, I see no reason why we shouldn't pursue this.
And Mr. City, with the additional acreage there, any future development, or is the focus
No,
for this permit?
most of the acreage is just forested, and people can, I've made some paths through that, but we don't have any interest in doing any more development.
And I do have a question. I should have asked this prior as well to Mr. Lipscomb, but you're familiar with the TOT process filing to the Commissioner of Revenue's office?
Yeah, I've done that.
Okay.
I did it last year, and I just sent in.
It's another step if you weren't aware of the transaction tax, just to make sure. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Okay.
And do you rent right now just on Airbnb, or?
I'm doing it on Airbnb right now. I think I've been building a site for VRBO as well.
Okay.
But just those two, yeah,
And
right
both-
now.
And both of those remit to the county automatically, so.
Airbnb does. I think VRBO does as well.
Yeah, they do. And I wish Jamie was here. Just the pool, are there any specific?
Jamie is aware that the pool is there.
Okay.
He has given me no feedback on any items on the pool, and I think that our building official would tell me if we needed
Okay.
something there.
And Emily, I guess we'll go to, as first pool we've kind of come across for, especially with for pay customers, does that fall under health or safety? I'm just,
Well, usually, but see, Airbnb is different because it's not regulated by us. If it was a B&B or a hotel, then under the transient lodging, we would inspect that. But maybe Jamie would have more, because on that side of things.
and
Yeah,
I
I'm
ask
not
just
sure.
because I think it will come up in the planning commission, especially with like ADA and health and safety. I'm pretty sure you're going to get hit with that question.
Okay,
Just want to know what the answer is.
Yeah.
yeah, all right.
Yeah, and as far as the planning commission, again, we have separate parallel tracks. You've got permitting that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Which is not part of the SUP.
Okay.
The SUP, when you, assuming we say yes, when you come before the planning commission, again, the more specifics you can have, the more detail you can show us, the site plan, where these buildings are.
Okay.
Maybe even if you take a few photographs and show what you have there
Okay, yeah. But
to,
in terms of the site plan, the web GIS, I took a screenshot of that. That shows where all the buildings are. Is that what you're looking for?
then, label them, say this is this and this
Okay.
and so forth.
Okay,
Nothing engineered plan. You don't have
Right,
to buy an
okay.
engineer.
All right.
Site plan is probably the wrong word, but, we're gonna want, probably gonna want to see some specific details.
okay,
We'll follow up.
okay.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
it's, how much of this is in floodplain? Because that's gonna impact your building.
None of the buildings are in floodplain. The floodplain goes up, there's the floodplain.
Okay, so even is that one toward the top, is that the?
That's the deck.
Riverside deck?
Yeah.
Okay, and even that's not in the floodplain?
That's not in the floodplain. The other side of the river is much lower, so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's why.
That Riverside deck was constructed under permit and inspected as well.
Yeah.
It was modified after the fact, but its placement is permitted and fine.
My plan, because I'm running out of space for tools and things, was to have the river deck. I had a little enclosed area that was supposed to be storage. And I was gonna put firewood and tools in there, and my wife was like, it's too nice to do that with. And so she made me put a little bedroom in there, and,
Happy wife, happy life.
there you go.
For the record, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Duly noted. Emily, since I think I cut you off, apologies. Any other comment from your side on?
No, he's working with an OSE, so, I think we might have asked him for a few revisions, and I think he's working on that, so we'll take a look at it.
The planning commission will most likely want to come out and have a pool day there to test the pool. So
Sounds
get ready
good.
for that. No, I'm kidding. To me, this was pretty straightforward. I don't think there's too much more discussion, but public comment on it or any other questions or comment from the panel? Do we have any motions?
I can make the motion for River House at the Swinging Bridge to move on to the planning commission.
Second.
Perfect. All right, the motion was made and seconded to move the River House at the Swimming Bridge application for multiple short-term rental SUP to the Planning Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moves along. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the public hearings for today. Y'all are more than welcome to stay for a little bit of housekeeping, or welcome to leave if you'd like as well.
I have this for you too, because I can put you on the website for free as well. Wrong bag, no card with me, so.
All right, for our final business today, you want to kind of go over this one, which I think is a great one?
Yeah, so the chairman and I were discussing earlier some of the processes that happen between preliminary development, planning commission, and board of supervisors, and what the application process looks like. In the near future, we will have an application come before us where a gentleman has a R1 property that is slightly under 2 acres, which requires a special use permit for livestock. The gentleman has 2 goats on his property, and his neighbor complained. So here we go. So for this gentleman, he, by our current processes, will go through preliminary development, planning commission workshop number 1, planning commission workshop number 2, and a public hearing so he can have 2 goats in his backyard. So with that in mind, the chairman and I were considering, and Mr. Carpenter, we certainly would like your input on this, for some very straightforward, very simple special use permits that we may recommend proceeding to the planning commission with a single workshop. By doing that, it would allow me to advertise for public hearing and meet the state requirements for that. Because if we get to the first workshop and the planning commission says this is really simple, this is fine, we don't need a second workshop on this one, it does not accelerate the process because I have to meet the state requirements for advertising. So it still gets put back a month and a half. If we decide here, if we think it's appropriate that we could proceed with a single workshop, and of course, we can bring this up to the planning commission at our next workshop and see what they think about it. If they are willing to defer to this body in recommending a workshop, a single instead of 2, that might be appropriate in some of these overly simple cases.
Yeah, I agree certainly with that. The fact that it should be, as long as specifically is at the option of the applicant. I mean, the 2 workshops is primarily designed to be for the benefit of the applicant. So, yeah, if they choose to choose one workshop, I certainly agree with that, yeah. I don't think the planning commission would have any problems with that idea.
If we defer to the applicant, every applicant will choose one workshop.
Yeah.
If they understand that, if, there's a good chance if you have a complex application and you choose one workshop, if they understand that it might be turned down because we have more questions, they have to consider that. That's why we have the 2 workshops.
I think the purpose of our discussion in this one was that I did not want to serve in an advisory capacity to the applicant to whether they should ask for 1 or 2. And it would be nice to have a panel of people who would recommend for simple ones, 1 or 2, instead of deferring to one administrator.
I would agree with that 2-pronged approach. One like this, it's unfortunate. Somebody's trying to have, a goat, or you have chickens, or whatever else you want to have. But the ordinance, and they're following the ordinance, so kudos to them for doing that, but they have to apply. it seems like a simple case that it wouldn't be complexities or VDH or VDOT or anything like that, or RSA would need to be reviewed. So I definitely support this committee using common sense approach on those one-offs because we don't see them that often. Furthermore, the second prong of this, I've had a planning commissioner ask me, I can't remember the exact case, but hey, is there a way that, what's this 2 workshop? I said, well, the idea is to make it complete, help guide the applicant. Maybe there's some things that they still need to work on that are pending. So not everything is pending when it gets to the joint meeting. But what I advised that planning commissioner, and maybe bad advice because I'm not a lawyer, is I believe the planning commission, any commissioner can reserve the right to make a motion to the chairman or the whole planning commission, but to the chairman that they recommend this be forego the second workshop and go to the joint meeting. Now, the difference of Alan's approach on this one here in agricultural versus taking that method at a planning commission workshop, the advertising requirements and all still gonna get kicked in. So you may avoid that second workshop, but you won't hit that in 2-week joint meeting. So you would officially still go like, what, another 30 days or so?
You would avoid the second workshop, but your joint hearing would not come until 6-7 weeks later, depending on how the calendar falls.
Right.
So-
But, yeah, I wasn't, actually, I think probably what you were saying now, make a recommendation at this level.
They're not gonna
They
advertise.
still have, it's their option. They still can decide, okay, I want to do 2, or I wouldn't want to do 1. Once it's made at that level, then does that help your timeline?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay,
Because
that's,
then the
we're not
applicant can tell me-
disagreeing then, actually.
Yeah, and it would be
It's-
nice, it'd be nice to carry it to a workshop to hear what the other commissioners have to say, because they'll have thoughts.
Yeah. But that's still, the PDRC looks at the complexity. We make a recommendation. They have the option of making the choice.
Yes.
They make the choice and then present to the planning commission, yeah.
That would help my
Yeah.
office.
Yeah. And that still gives you the timeline, so they don't have to lose that time in between.
That's right. And to be fair, we're not asking people who are getting permitted for existing activities, unless we had some major, environmental impact. But generally speaking, we're not asking people to stop their activities while they're going through the process of getting permitted. We're acting on good faith that they're gonna do the things that they need to do to get permitted and to continue operating. We're not trying to give one a hard time. So the fact that, something gets kicked down the road doesn't mean that somebody's, waiting on an existing activity, but a new business like our daycare folks over here. And there's more to unpack with them specifically, but that kind of case, they are waiting to do business, based on this, so, I don't know, food for thought.
Mr. Goss, from his supervisory standpoint, what do you think
No, I think anytime we're making the process quicker where we can, and I mean, ultimately, yes, we can make a recommendation here, but it may get to the planning commission, they may realize, we need another workshop. That's fine. But I believe we could still make a recommendation here so that the process could be expedited if need be. And it
Yeah,
works.
that's true, that at the planning commission level, if it looks like we need the second workshop. we can-
You could request a second workshop. It's
Yeah.
simply a recommendation from this
Yeah.
committee.
Very good.
All right, I don't think we need to take a vote on that, but we'll take it to note, or?
Very good.
Just basically, I would recommend that, you have that option during the time you make a motion. It's just if when you are hearing a specific case or pre-application here, signal to, and Alan may, from a staffing point, give you a heads up like he's done on this particular case. So I don't think you necessarily need a motion, Mr. Chairman. You'd be happy to take one if you want, it's your purview. But I definitely think for those cases, you just make it part of your motion.
Staff recommendation, and
Staff
that would be
recommendation.
very valuable.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you want, Alan, you want to schedule a discussion of this at the next workshop and say, go from there, or?
Yes, and
Okay.
I think that the planning commission would be more receptive to a limited scope of work recommendation coming from this body as a whole,
Yep.
rather than the zoning administrator saying, we need,
Yes.
just need one workshop for this one, guys.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked for help in this body.
Perfect. Okay, I think that concludes new business. Any public comment from anybody? We didn't have anybody online, did we? Okay, public comment from panels. All right, does anybody have a motion to get us, this was a good one.
Move to adjourn.
All right,
Good deal.
all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody that's crazy?
This conference is no longer being recorded.